Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Wegner, as you know, the SEC has experienced some cybersecurity difficulties, especially in the 2016 Edgar data breach. I think it's important for the SEC to only obtain proprietary trading algorithms if absolutely necessary with a subpoena. So I was wondering if you could discuss why it's important for source code to be protected.
Sure, that's a very good question. So the real lifeblood of automated trading and the kind of secret sauce is the source code. That is the valuable intellectual property that the different firms are competing against each other with, not just domestically, but globally. And just like a self-driving car company needs to keep its algos and source code and intellectual property protected from misappropriation, so do algorithmic traders rely on government protection of their intellectual property. There was a proposal a number of years ago to perhaps collect IP source code and put that in a government repository just in case it was needed. That never came to light, but it's still something we're absolutely educating policymakers on. This should be, I think, a bipartisan area of interest to ensure that we have a globally competitive marketplace that protects intellectual property rights of source code.
I appreciate that. From my time in the military working in intelligence, we had a principle we lived by because of the sensitivity of the data that we collected and maintained was if you don't need something, don't keep it, which means if you don't have to protect what you don't have. And my concern is how vulnerable the industry becomes because, quite frankly, the government tends to be the weakest link when it comes to data security in some aspects. So I think obtaining that source code is not only just a violation of the privacy right of the business, the coder, but could also be a national security risk. Is that?
I mean, I think that's right. If bad actors were able to breach the source code, it would be presenting an opportunity for manipulating the markets or cyber risk. So it's absolutely vital that we protect the intellectual property rights of source code.
Thank you. Ms. Fender, the adoption of artificial intelligence and electronic trading can disrupt the job market and displace for traders, but technologies also create a need for more workers in other fields. Today we have about 1 million people working in the airline industry, but in the early 1900s, the Washington Post led a headline that said, "Man will never fly and shouldn't." And part of their argument was the displacement of people in the job market. Could you touch on the job fields that are growing because of the use of AI in the capital market space?
Yes, thank you. As you noted, there are many ways that jobs are changing. Adaptation is really the key. So when we surveyed industry leaders, the people that are doing the hiring, and we said, what are the most important skills going forward? Maybe it's not necessarily the job description. What are the skills underlying who will succeed in the future? And they talked about something called T-shaped skills, right? And so this is the idea that if you think about the letter T, you've got the vertical bar where there's deep subject matter expertise, and a horizontal bar where you can cut across different disciplines, right? And if you think about fintech, if we have a big risk if there's fin over here and tech over here and they aren't talking. And so the ability to connect the two is where there's a lot of opportunity. And so these are the innovators. This is an area where you'll see more research needing to be done so that we understand what the trends are. And the key thing is that people have to ask the right questions. Firms are realizing you have to think about the ROI of gathering this data. And many of the machine learning people will say a large percentage of the data isn't that useful. So you have to be smart about how to do that and start the process with investment professionals.
Okay. And so getting at is not all the jobs are going to be just this deep intellectual, being able to code and understand algorithms and that, but there are ancillary jobs that come about because of the development. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, definitely. We don't think, for example, that all CFA charter holders need to become programmers, but we think they're going to have data scientists on their teams, and they're going to need to speak the language and work together.
Okay. Ms. Rejsjö, I want to talk about the use of artificial intelligence in fraud detection I view cybersecurity as the biggest challenge that we face in this nation, both from a business, government, and personal perspective. Can you touch, real quickly, running out of time, how algorithms are used to detect unusual market behavior?
Yes, so as I said, we really rely on algorithmic coding to pick up on the unusual patterns that we see. I mean, everything needs to be compared to something that is usual, right? So we program things to pick up on the unusual things based on historical comparison on specific stocks, how they have been trading in the past. So that's what we do already, and we have done for a long time. The new thing here is...
At this point, I think we'll leave that to your, and hopefully to your next round of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Rejsjö, I'd like to go back and kind of continue our conversation that we were talking about cybersecurity and using AI and fraud, and I wasn't very well managing my time before. So could you explain further how Nasdaq is actually using AI in fraud detection?
Yes, so I mean, I think it's important just to start that, I mean, the future is here, right? We have billions of data points. It's a massive amount of data that needs to be analyzed to capture anything that is then fraudulent or manipulative in the market. So we have that environment already. And what we have been doing so far is deploying algorithmic coding to sort of be able to process all of this data very fast. I mean, our real-time surveillance is picking up on unusual behavior within seconds after it has happened in the market. So there is really a fast and efficient way to go through the data. But as it is growing and exponentially growing, there's the need, of course, to continue to invest in other ways of looking at it, where AI then comes in. It's more an broader approach, and it doesn't have to be so parameter specific that we are today, so we can capture more things that is more sophisticated, because as we have been talking about, it's not only us using this technique, or the participants in the market are using it as well. So I think it's important for us to match their technology with our technology when we look at the types in the market or the behavior.
Thank you. Dr. Lopez del Prado, can you touch on the differences between automated trading, algorithmic trading, high frequency, and computer trading, how they're not all the same, and what differentiates each of those?
Yes, algorithmic trading consists in following some rules. A computer follows some rules in order to achieve a particular outcome. It does not require machine learning. Machine learning is the learning of patterns from a set of data with us directing that learning. Essentially what happens is you give to an algorithm a data set, and the data set identifies a pattern we were not aware of. So that's machine learning. What was the, I'm sorry, the third one, high-frequency trading?
The automated trading and high frequency as well.
Well, high-frequency trading is algorithmic trading at a fast speed. It can happen with or without machine learning. So in the early stages, 2005, high-frequency trading occurred without intelligence. But today, what we see is many liquidity providers, market makers, hedge funds deploy high-frequency solutions with machine learning embedded.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Wegner, we've had some discussion on the cost savings that have resulted from AI and automation in the capital markets. Do you see that these efficiencies are a significant reason behind the record returns investors have enjoyed in the last decade?
I mean, this has definitely contributed to the returns. Every reduced incremental cost of trading adds up with compounding interest over time. So as the markets become more efficient, investors are going to have more in their pocketbooks, whether they're, like half of Americans invested in a 529 plan or otherwise. It's been a net positive.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions, Mr. Chair. I yield back.